Jiraiya versus Orochimaru. Who wins between these two powerful Kage level legendary Sanin if they were to face off in a full-scale battle? Well, that's the battle I have for y'all today. Like, share, and subscribe, as well as comment down below on any thoughts you have about this video. Now, before getting right into the video, let me just state that I'm going to be primarily focusing on the Orochimaru that faced off against a Four Tails Naruto, given that I feel like that's the best version of Orochimaru to use, or the fairest version of Orochimaru to use, because I'm not going to use the Orochimaru that, like, faced off against Hiruzen, because he has Tobirama and Hashirama there, and that's unfair. And I'm not going to use the Warlock Orochimaru like Boruto Orochimaru, because I feel like that's just unfair, as he has gotten a lot more powerful at that point, and Jiraiya didn't actually get the opportunity to get more powerful, obviously. So I'm going to be using just the Orochimaru that faced off against Naruto, or Four Tails Naruto. And I guess I'm kind of also using the Jiraiya that kind of faced off against the Four Tails Naruto, more or less. And then obviously as the video progresses, I'll use different versions of these two characters. But the primary basis of them is just their base forms first. Now let me just state that I think they are really actually more or less relative when it comes to their strength, speed, and their combat skill. There's not much that will actually allow me to go on either side and say one is physically stronger than the other, or one is faster than the other. But to be honest, given that for the most part it was always implied that Orochimaru is kind of superior to Jiraiya for some reason, you could simply say that Orochimaru is just slightly greater than Jiraiya in terms of strength and speed, but there's not much to actually confirm that, so I prefer to just say that they're more or less relative in both these aspects, given the lack of feats to display otherwise. And then the same thing applies obviously to their combat skills. Though Orochimaru is technically smarter than Jiraiya in combat, both of them have many years of experience, and both of them do fight quite well and strategically, so they are both just relative in combat skills as well. In my personal opinion, perhaps you could make the argument for Orochimaru even there, given that he's a prodigy, but I prefer to put them relative even in their combat skill. But then when it comes to durability, I think, though even there they might be slightly relative, because obviously both of them can tank quite a lot of attacks, like attacks from Tsunade, which is obviously quite impressive. And you could make the argument that the fact that Jiraiya was nearly brought to death by Tsunade's punch, and Orochimaru was able to tank a few of Tsunade's punches, that could perhaps mean that Orochimaru is more durable than Tsunade. But then there's the obvious fact that Orochimaru, when attacked by the Nine Tails or the Four Tails Naruto, was cut in half with just one attack. Yet Jiraiya faced off against the Four Tails Naruto, not even trying to actually fight him, but instead trying to subdue him. And he actually did get wounded by the Four Tails Naruto, nearly being killed, but he did simply tank it. Now that could either say that they are more or less relative in terms of durability, but I want to lean slightly towards Jiraiya in that aspect. But I will say that Orochimaru definitely has a high healing factor than Jiraiya, given the amount of times he's like brought his body back together with his snakes, or regurgitated himself. Just his healing factor is quite high, and definitely greater than that of Jiraiya. But then we obviously have to start talking about their power and their ninjutsu. Now I will be completely honest, both of them have an insanely large arsenal, both of them having different elements to their advantage. Both of them have fire style, but of one style, which obviously helps them out quite drastically in the battle. Orochimaru has quite a lot of snake-based jutsus, and Jiraiya has quite a lot of toad-based jutsus, and obviously that's also quite a massive thing to consider. And also obviously both of them have multiple summonings, with Jiraiya having multiple toad summonings and Orochimaru having multiple snake summonings. But that does obviously bring us to the fact that Orochimaru's snake summoning, his main snake summoning, that being Manda, is actually superior to Jiraiya's main toad summoning, which is obviously Gamabunta, which should imply that in terms of power, Orochimaru might be slightly greater. I mean, he does even have the Sword of Kusanagi, which should help him out quite a lot in the battle against Jiraiya. But then you could also talk about the fact that Jiraiya has his hair, which also is quite a large asset to him. But obviously, given that Manda is simply a superior summoning to Gamabunta, that was kind of portrayed in the battle between Orochimaru, Tsunade, and Jiraiya. So I want to lean towards Orochimaru being superior in that aspect as well, in the aspect of raw power. But nevertheless, they both just have an insanely large arsenal, which should put them quite relative even in that aspect. Now, ultimately, who do I believe wins between these two characters if they were to face off in a full-scale battle, just base versus base? Well, I believe that the victor should be Orochimaru. See, you could obviously, as I said earlier, you could obviously make an argument for Orochimaru being greater to Jiraiya in terms of strength and speed. That's a definite possibility. You could also make the argument when it comes to their combat skills, given that Orochimaru was always implied to be slightly superior to Jiraiya, and he was obviously also implied to be a prodigy. But given the lack of faith, I would prefer to put them relative in terms of strength and speed. But then there's the fact that Orochimaru is also quite durable, being able to tank quite a lot of attacks from Tsunade, but on top of that, he also has insane regenerative capabilities, and to even add on to that, he also does have a far superior summoning than Jiraiya, that being Mana, who could have actually killed Gamabunta and Jiraiya. That obviously on its own is impressive. Then it obviously does also have the Sword of Kusanagi. I think Orochimaru does slightly win this battle. Like, emphasis on slightly, because Jiraiya also is relative to him and has an insanely large arsenal as well, with like Genjutsu, his hair, summonings, and a variety of other jutsus. So I think Orochimaru just has a mere slight advantage and might win this battle when talking about base versus base. Say 6 out of 10 times Orochimaru should win the fight. But then when you move on to that and say Jiraiya goes into Sage Mode, well, first we have to talk about if Jiraiya can actually get into Sage Mode, and I actually think he can, given the amount of jutsus and summonings he could perhaps use in the battle against Orochimaru to give himself some time to get into Sage Mode. It's not a definite possibility, and Orochimaru might be able to stop him from getting into Sage Mode. That is a possibility, so you could just make the argument that he doesn't actually get the capabilities of getting into Sage Mode. But I believe he does slightly have the chance. So say Jiraiya does get into Sage Mode, then what happens? Well, to be honest, Jiraiya stomps Orochimaru at that point. Because not only is Jiraiya's strength, speed, and durability enhanced, but so are his general taijutsu and combat skills, and his sensory skills are also quite drastically enhanced, meaning Orochimaru can't sneak up on him or anything like that. And he obviously just has a lot more chakra and weapons and jutsus in his arsenal, which should also help him out quite drastically, like of course having the massive Rasengan, which should be a kind of a one-shot win when going up against Orochimaru, regardless of Orochimaru's durability and healing factor. Which does obviously mean that at that point I do slightly lean towards Jiraiya having the massive advantage in the battle. I mean, it's not even just the massive Rasengan. Jiraiya in general has a lot more chakra, a lot more weapons in his arsenal, and his general physical attributes are enhanced quite drastically. And the most important weapon he obviously has in his arsenal at that point is Ma and Pa, with them possessing the Frog Song, which is a powerful Genjutsu. And Orochimaru in general isn't the best at Genjutsu or freeing himself from Genjutsu. So having a Genjutsu like the Frog Song is just unfair battle, and Jiraiya immediately wins if the Frog Song is put into place because of how powerful that Genjutsu is, being able to contain multiple paths of pain. And if Orochimaru actually goes into his Hydra form, which is said to be his most powerful form, which is obviously a really powerful form, does the battle change? No, it does not, because still Jiraiya still has greater physical attributes and the massive Rasengan, which is said to be able to carve away mountains, but he also has the Frog Song, which still should be effective and catch Orochimaru. Now, you could perhaps make the argument that the Frog Song might not work on all of the different snakes' heads and stuff. That is a possibility, but then Jiraiya still has quite a lot of other weapons in his arsenal, and Orochimaru didn't show to have that many other jutsus in his arsenal whilst in his Hydra form. Jiraiya still has many other elements. He has superior physical attributes, the massive Rasengan, and obviously Frog Song. So at that point, I do think that Jiraiya does have the advantage in the battle and should win the battle. So ultimately, I think base versus base, Orochimaru wins 6 out of 10 times. He barely wins, but then when you're going to use Jiraiya in his Sage Mode, I think he stomps Orochimaru in every form. Anyway, that's all I've got for y'all for today. I'm sure many people are going to have a lot of comments and thoughts about that. Please leave them down below. This is MC Info with another MC Clash. I'm out.